Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and normally when I bring my good friend Perch on the channel, let's discuss maybe some comic book news or maybe an overall, like a comic topic or a hot button item or something like that, and we kind of just chew the fat on things like that. But today, he's joined the channel. We're going to talk a little bit about something a little bit more, I don't know, visceral, something that gets the heart pumping, gets people's emotions going up. We're going to be talking about SJWs and kind of what does it even mean anymore?
Yeah,
Perch, what you up to, buddy?
I'm fighting the hidden menace. That's what I'm doing. No, happy to be on with you on this topic, and it's one I've been thinking about for a long time.
Yeah, it's strange. You know, a few years ago, it's a term, of course, I used a lot to describe a lot of things. Well, not a lot of things. My view of like SJW behavior is actually kind of specific. That's why I don't really use the term anymore. Like for SJW behavior, it was always there had to be some type of coercion or even use of force, like coercion through shame or guilt or threats or use of force. Like you will lose your job if you don't adjust your behavior and fall in line with what I believe. But I don't really I don't see the term being used like that anymore. It's more of an all-encompassing thing to basically identify people that you don't like or disagree with you nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, this term, I mean, it really kicked off in around 2010, and it was what you said. It was designed around social justice, which generally was linked to politics or politic-like ideas, and it usually meant that it came with this idea of win at any cost, or the ends justify the means. I'm a warrior. I'm going to actually, as you say, deplatform or get somebody fired or force an issue. So it was a term that was kind of it's in some ways a badge of pride from people initially who liked the term, who said this represents what I am and what I'm about, which would be progressive views or feminism or multiculturalism or what have you, and that I'm willing to go and do things to make that happen. I'm willing to fight to make that happen. But like you said, it now means everything. It no longer means what it once meant.
Yeah, it almost like the left's use of the words alt-right or Nazi.
Yeah.
Like if anyone calls me alt-right or Nazi, which I have been called that, relatively recently, I don't care. It means nothing to me because I don't even know what my behavior that you're talking about now. It just means that you disagree with me.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a slur. It's not something that again, people throw it at each other constantly over anything, and it's changed from becoming there's a certain behavior, a certain philosophical bend that you're on to I don't like you. Here's the word I'm going to grab out for. And like you said, it's SJW or it's Nazi or it's alt-right or it's any number of others. Corona idiot. That's
incels. I've been called an incel a lot.
Exactly. Incels is a perfect example of another one. It does not mean anything anymore. And in many cases, for me, it means a lot more about the person who's using it than anything else.
Yeah, like I can cite examples of what I thought was SJW behavior. I remember several years ago, Tim Seeley was supposed to be writing, like, I don't think it was a Blade book, but I think it was like Blade's daughter or something like that. And a bunch of people attacked Marvel, Axel Alonso specifically, and said he can't write that book because he's not black, he's white, and he's right. So he wouldn't have the right point of view, or he wouldn't have the right life experience, and he needs to be removed from that title. And of course, the title never got launched because then nobody wanted to write it because they didn't want to get like protested. But to me, that's the kind of behavior that I associated with that in the past.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's something where the topic is political or social in nature, and we're going to force somebody to do what we want by threatening them or just making it very, very difficult. And and so both sides would almost use this as either a badge of pride. I mean, the people who were doing that were proud of what they were doing. That's kind of the difference between incel, for example. You didn't see people going around calling themselves that and being proud of it, but you had people who were SJW say, yeah, this is what I do. And during Gamergate, that was very much a badge of honor for people. And then you had people who used that to identify clear behavior. And so, that all made some level of sense, at least in, around 2010 to 2014, maybe, where, maybe a little bit after that, but that's where at least there was some definition that worked. But now it is, I mean, you have just, if you do something I don't like, you're an SJW, or it kind of grew to be, if you're trying to, dismiss anyone. You're trying to police my words, or more, you don't hold the strong principles you pretend to. You're a hypocrite. You're somebody who's saying, you're an SJW because you're saying you want this, but you don't actually want this. It's muddled. And today it has no teeth. I mean, I don't know anybody who jumps in response to that term anymore, even though it keeps being used.
It was kind of strange. Like I watch, I actually watch wrestling YouTube. It's one of my dirty little secrets. And there was like a YouTuber, and like he was insinuating on one of his videos that this female performer, the only reason that she was getting opportunities in the business and was moving up the card was essentially he was saying like she was blowing people.
Yeah.
And of course, he got a lot of feedback on that one that was extremely negative. Guess what it was? You're all a bunch of SJWs. It wasn't that you're insinuating that someone who's working in the business is using sexual favors to move themselves to the top. That's disgusting behavior. Because he obviously didn't have any proof of that. There's none of that. He just said it, and any type of feedback that was negative was just SJW behavior.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, I think I really hate it. And you see it in comics all the time where somebody throws out a half-baked kind of weird theory in their own mind. Or maybe they just want to just find reason for something and they grab onto something. And maybe it's, how certain comic writers or artists got their jobs, or, I saw it when you and I did the videos around, no, AT&T is not selling DC Comics. And people came at us and said, well, you're SJWs for saying that. It's like, no, bringing logic and facts does not equal you're an SJ. I mean, it's a blanket insult. It means nothing. And generally the people who use it sound ridiculous. They may not think it, but they do sound ridiculous. And when you go on these streams, you see people just parroting over and over, SJWs. You don't make any sense anymore. You just don't.
I never associated that term with people that I disagreed with or maybe had a different worldview of me. Like, just because you believe in progressive ideology, maybe more liberal type of things, if you're not trying to coerce me or force me to fall in line with your beliefs, you're just someone that disagrees with me. That's not SJW behavior. That's just a point of view.
Yeah, people shouldn't be afraid to disagree, and people shouldn't be upset when somebody disagrees with them. That's generally how we learn and discover new things, is through disagreement. In a lot of cases, most disagreement is civil. Most disagreement is just people who are trying to lay out different facts or show a different opinion on something. I may like a comic you don't like. That doesn't mean one of us is an SJW. It just means we have difference of opinion. What once was somebody who was a sanctimonious, unreasonable, cancel culture kind of person has evolved into just, you don't agree with me, therefore you're an SJW, or you're an insult, or you're a Nazi, or whatever. And if you've ever been called one of those terms, then you know how stupid it feels.
Well, the dumbest thing is, I wouldn't say I'm in the middle. I'll be honest. I am a conservative-leaning, independent-minded person. I don't affiliate with any party, and I don't agree with anybody completely. I have my own beliefs and stuff like that. But I've been called an SJW, a Nazi, an insult. It's like, I can't be everything. I just must piss everybody off for not falling in line, like in one of these tribes, or not taking my invite to the group seriously.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think first of all, the label only works if you let it stick to you. And at this point, people can call you and put you into what other bucket they want to put you into, but it doesn't matter anymore. I mean, people really want you to be part of a tribe. And if you weren't going to be part of yours, and you're going to be the enemy. And the only way that really gnaws at you is if you think about it, you worry about it, you care. It's certainly no fun being called a Nazi or an SJW or any of these things. And it can have consequences. If somebody's throwing these terms out around you online and it's attached to your name, I mean, this can be discoverable. It can certainly hurt you in your job and your career. So that's the serious part of all this. But you don't have to let these labels stick to you. You don't have to suddenly force it into one tribe or another. You can just ignore, honestly, a lot of this. And I get that there are real life consequences, and I get that this stuff is not all equal and fair. It is absolutely not. But joining into the fray by just throwing more insults around helps nothing. Doesn't help you. Doesn't help anybody.
Obviously, we both run comic book YouTube channels. You're in the industry. I'm on the periphery. I guess sort of because I talk about it.
Yeah,
Speaking, just of the comic book, fandom or readership, a lot of people will throw that like the SJW term about writing. And I don't get that one. Like I can see, SJW behavior, what I understand to be from the writer. Like maybe if you come back and you say, this take on this character is awful because of this, and they say, that's just because you can't accept a strong female hero. You're obviously a misogynist or whatever. But a lot of the writers don't come back with that. They write something from a point of view that the readers don't like. I don't consider that like bad writing. I just consider that bad writing. It's maybe not SJW behavior. There might just be bad writers.
Yeah, and I think more people should just stick with that. Honestly, you're making it too complicated. A bad story is just a bad story. It doesn't need to be a bad story that is a Nazi story or an SJW story or any of these things. It's just a bad story. And I think we actually give these stories cover. We make these stories more popular, and in many cases they really should be, by bringing them into a culture war where really they just suck. There's plenty of comics out there, just bad comics. You and I have talked many times about the bad plots and the strange writing of some of Bendis's stuff on Superman. Would you call that SJW Superman, or would you just call it bad writing? I mean, it doesn't need to be anything more than it is, which is it's just bad writing. And I think that people spend so much time kind of trying to bend their heads around, attaching politics to it or attaching social things to it. And even if the story is representing, marginalized views or using language that sounds like something right out of the heart of Gamergate, and even if it's doing that, it doesn't change that it's bad writing. It's at its core, it's bad writing. It's better just to go to the root of things and call things what they are.
And then, sometimes we'll see people with bad behavior. There'll be consequences. They'll get fired. Like Chuck Wendig. I think you just did a video about him on your channel. Like, I don't think he got fired for his SJW beliefs or even his SJW behavior. He got fired for violating a social media policy and telling fans to, lick feces off of his boot.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's again, when you go to the corporate world of business, it's not that complicated. It doesn't get into politics like that. He cost them money. If his comments hadn't gotten picked up, if they'd been ignored, if nobody had really seen them, he'd be writing Star Wars today. He cost Disney money, and thus they enacted his social media contract, and he was fired. It's as simple as that. It's not an alt-right conspiracy from Ike Perlmutter. It's not SJW tactics gone amiss. It's profits. He cost them cash. He's gone. Same thing would be true if Kathleen Kennedy or there's so many videos about her handling of Star Wars, and did she cost them money? Did she take away from value and everything else? If it was clear cut that every film was doing Solo-like numbers, she'd be gone. The reality is she did make them some money. That's why she hangs on. And we can say she didn't do enough for the upside, but it clear-cut cases of you cost them business, you embarrass them, they fire you. It has nothing to do with SJWs or anything else. It's just business.
So there's another part of this that I want to talk about. It's kind of nuanced, but I think using the term can take away a fan or readership's ability to affect change. I think if you go and you scream at executives at Marvel or part of the editorial staff and say, "I'm tired of SJW nonsense in my books. I'm tired of you're just pro-feminism," rather than specifically pointing out what about the book was bad and why you're dropping it. I think if they hear that enough, like, this writer sucks because he's doing this and this with the characters, it's not falling in line with continuity, or I see that he's trying to push a progressive agenda. He only talks about that on his social media. It's clearly affecting his ability to write. I think people would be much more effective pointing out the actual things that are wrong with their behavior rather than using like the catch-all terms or the buzzwords.
Yeah, I agree. I think the buzzwords are at this point part of mute filters and everything else. Your words aren't getting heard. So you got to say, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to get these comics changed? If you are, then you do need to put in the work, like Doug Ernst has in the past, with kind of writing up the details of what's going on, or you have on your channel, or I have, or any of us. If you really want to enact change, you have to do in the work to specify what change you want. Doesn't mean it's always going to work. I'm not saying, oh, the simple trick to changing Marvel is just to be specific. I'm not saying that at all. But your chances of enacting change are far greater than using these buzzwords that, again, they're part of mute filters, and it gives people easy cover to say, oh, this person's crazy, I can just ignore them. And that's what happens at these big corporations. If you come in screaming and using these terms, then you're automatically dismissed. Even if behind your screaming, you are saying something reasonable, you do have a good point, which you might, but you're getting ignored because you're feeding into the culture war, and it's just very easy for them to go, oh, it's another lunatic. And they do, which isn't fair, but it is what it is.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons you won't hear me use the term on the channel when I describe the issues that I have with comics, even though some of that might be what I consider personally SJW behavior, because I see it as ineffective, that I need to actually point out the specific behavior if I ever want change to happen. Now, do I think that Marvel or DC or anyone's going to change their policies or remove a writer because of what I've said? Absolutely not. I'm only one voice. But if I can convey my point and articulate it well enough that other people understand it, and then other people are able to articulate their issues with it, then maybe change can then be affected.
It's far more likely. I mean, I think you should try to make your point as coherent as possible, as detailed as possible, as nuanced as possible, so that you're being very specific with your words. You're getting the change you want. Doesn't necessarily mean you're being successful. Like you, I make comments about pricing practices and other things I'm doing. I'm one voice, a tiny voice in all things considered. It's why I often do put more responsibility on people who have the huge YouTube numbers, the Comics Explained, or these types of people. You do have a bigger audience. You do have a bigger megaphone. I want you to use it responsibly, but ultimately it's your channel. You can do what you want. But when you use these terms, and again, you can do what you want. I'm not telling you have to stop using the term at all. Please, by all means. It's just, think about your goal. Is your goal just to kind of have fun, chat with your friends? Then you go nuts, use it away. If your goal is to be listened to, then you got to think about the strategy in order to get listened to. It's like going into a job interview. You can wear whatever clothes you want. You can wear a t-shirt and shorts. You can wear a suit. The suit's probably going to do better for you, even though that suit arguably has nothing to do with your brain and your skills to do the job. But you do that because it's going to position you the best way. This is very similar. If you want to enact change, you want to be listened to, you need to position yourself in the best way. Or you could just have fun. Again, I'm not, if you want to say SJW, have fun, do whatever you go for it. Just you don't be surprised if you throw the terms around, if nobody listens to you. Just if you're having fun with yourself, it doesn't matter. But think about what you want, what outcome you want.
Absolutely. I'm not saying, like, if you come into my comments and you use the term SJW, you're not going to get muted. You're not going to get blocked. I'm not going to even go throw the comment out. And likely, if I understand exactly what you're talking about, I'll respond if I have time. People can say whatever they want. I'm not here to police people's behavior or their speech. I'm just saying what my point of view on the term is and why I personally don't use it on the channel, because I think it's ineffective. If you like other channels that use the term a lot, great, then they're meeting your needs as far as what you're wanting to consume. I'm just talking about my point of view, and I hope people understand where we're coming from. I don't hate anybody. I'm just saying it feels like it's a useless term at this point.
It certainly does not have the same effectiveness it did 5-10 years ago. It meant more then. It's been, and it's true of any term, any kind of slogan, anything. It loses effectiveness over time, and it has, in terms of enacting change. And like you said, I'm the same way. I don't use it on my channel because it doesn't mean, when I see people in, comicsgate using it against each other, people lost the plot with what that term means. So I like to be specific in what I'm saying. So if I use it, it's not going to be specific. And that's why I ignore it. But if in the comments, you talk to me and everything else, like you, I'll try and listen to you and understand what you're trying to say, and respond. People should do what they want and have fun. It's just at times I've seen, and you and I both have seen, comic fans bemoaning the fact that they're not being listened to, or their words aren't effective, or they're getting ignored. And I think all we're doing here is just offering you, here's one reason why, or one way you might be able to be more effective in your critique.
Thank you very much for joining me, Perch. I think we hit this one pretty good, and I think we got our point across.
Yeah, hopefully so. It's an interesting topic, and maybe we'll hit it on a live stream at some point and go into it further with people.
That is a great idea. Maybe we'll do it this weekend.
Sounds good.